Hello, wonderful people. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Rodna, and if you're coming back, welcome back. We're going to talk about how to address a slavery mindset. Now, what even is a slavery mindset? Now, before we go further, we're currently going through a series called Mindset Mastery. You can't go above your mindset. If your mind is enslaved, if it's in bondage, if it is stuck, if it is limited, you can't go past that. So it's time to address and deal with the mind and all the matters, everything pertaining to the mind we're talking about. And if you haven't seen any of my videos, go over to my playlist, and everything will be there under Mindset Mastery. Go watch this video first before you go onto this video. And this is my favorite stuff to talk about, and I'm so passionate about mindset because a lot of people are in bondage and a lot of people feel stuck. And I'm so passionate about wanting people to progress and be successful and live their best lives. But the mindset is one of the things, and is the main thing that holds us back from doing so. So why not address the mind? You don't have to live a life that constantly feeling stuck, constantly feeling insecure, constantly feeling anger, resentment, hate, rage. Your past is your past, and you don't have to take that burden or that past into your future. Let's work on our mindset now, because your mindset can change. You can change your mindset. And this is why I'm doing this series, to let you know that you don't have to stay with those thoughts. And the worst thing that you can do, and the worst thing I hear people saying is, that's just who I am. That's just how I am. I'm just an angry person. That's just me. That's a fixed mindset, because you're blocking your ability to change. No, it's not who you are. It might have been who you've always been, but that's not how you can be in the future. You have the ability and the power to change. So what is a slavery mindset? A slavery mindset is someone who is physically free, in the sense that they can go about and do everything. They're not in prison physically. They have the ability to do and go everywhere. However, the mindset is limited. The mindset is in some sort of slavery. So think about your mind being in prison, quite literally in prison. You're a prisoner of your own mind, based on some of the things that you've thought, some of the things that happened to you. It could be trauma, it could be limited beliefs, it could be the things that people said to you that have shaped this, in a sense, prison cell that you've lived in for months, for years, for decades. And whilst you're free physically, mentally, you're not free. And Joyce Meyer published a book called Battlefield of the Mind. Whoever has your mind has you. Whoever can control your mind and your thinking has you. Many years ago, there was colonization and there was slavery, and people were imprisoned, and they were slaves, physical slaves. Their body was physically enslaved, even to such an extent that when slavery finished, they had been slaves for so long that the mindset was a slave mindset. So even though there was no physical bondage, no physical slavery, it had been programmed in their mind. You can be in such an abusive relationship for so long that even when you leave that situation, you're still in your mind, it's still there. That thing was years ago, it was decades ago, and you're not there anymore, and you're not that person anymore. But in your mind, you are still fixed on that mindset. You are still fixed on that situation, in that room, in that place, in that environment. You're still stuck there. So whilst your body's developed and changed, your mind is there. You don't have to stay in that slavery mindset, in that bound mindset, over the things that happened in the past, over the things that people said to you over in the past, like a chain around your neck. You don't have to stay like that. And the brain will condition to you, if you've been in such a situation for so long, if you've been in a terrible situation, you've lived poor, you've lived a certain type of life for so long, even though you know it's not a good situation, even though this doesn't serve me, this is not good for me, this is not where I'm supposed to be, is still in that mindset of bondage and slavery, that you want to go back. That person was abusive to you, that person used to beat you, that person used to spit on you and abuse you. You've left physically, but your mind is in slavery, that you want to go back because you haven't dealt with the mind. You haven't dealt with the stuff that's underneath. Again, I show you this picture of the iceberg. On top is your behavior and your actions, and beneath is your limiting beliefs. It's the mindset. It's the things that you think, the things that are holding you back, the things that keep you stuck. And that's the stuff that we need to work on. That's the stuff that we need to work on to move past the enslaved mindset, to move past the limited beliefs, and actually acknowledge it, address it, and reprogram the mind and get out of that and get the key, open the prison cell in your mind and walk free. And one thing I want you to be aware of is what you're thinking and what you're focusing on. Believe it or not, we're constantly meditating. Meditation is mulling over, focusing on something, repeating it back. It's just a question of what are you meditating on? What are you focusing on? And what you focus on, you magnify. It's literally a magnify. You're putting a magnifying glass and you are focusing on this. So if you're focusing on the negative, you're focusing on the idea and the beliefs that no one loves you, you're unlovable, you're ugly, you can never make it in life. That's what you're meditating on. And that's what you begin to attract. And that's what you begin to focus and magnify. And then when things prove you right, and when someone says something, you're like, I told you no one loves me. I'm not good at maths. I can't lose any weight, because you're focusing and meditating on that. Be aware and be conscious of what is going on in your mind, what you're programming your mind, what you're focusing on, because what you focus on, you magnify. And what you magnify, you continue to attract that. And then you wonder why it's always happening. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because you're constantly focusing on it. Have you ever, I do this a lot, you've never seen a particular make or model of a car, and then one of your friends and your family members, they buy that car. All of a sudden, you see this car everywhere. You had never seen it before. Now, that doesn't mean it wasn't there, but you had just never shifted your focus and looked at it. And that's the same with our mind. When we are focusing on the negative things, you will see negative things everywhere. You will see the things that support this negative behavior. But the problem is we are constantly playing back scenarios in our head. That person didn't greet me. Why did they not greet me? Oh, that person said this in this way. Why did they say it in that tone? What does that mean? And we're playing detective and find things that support our beliefs, our way of thinking, and then we start to meditate on that stuff. That's meditation. Constantly thinking, oh, what did they say about that? What did they mean by that? The way that they looked at me, the way that they spoke to me, the way that this and the way that that's meditation. You are literally mulling over, you're playing it back, you're nitpicking, you're unpicking, and trying to look for something that might not even be there. So instead, shift your focus. Meditating on the wrong things leads to anxiety, it leads to fear, it leads to worry. And when you start feeling fearful, when you start feeling anxious, when you start feeling scared or worried, take a step back and think, what have I been focusing on? And there are many people out there that are walking around a slave to habits, behaviors, a slave to past wounds, a slave to our flesh. But you do not have to be enslaved. Like, you don't have to live like that. There is a way out, and I am excited to be sharing that with you over the course of these next couple of weeks on this mindset mastery. So talking about captivity and slavery of the mind, there was a study that was done in the 1960s. Now, I personally don't agree with this study in terms of it was done on dogs and it potentially caused some harm physically and psychologically on dogs. But there are lessons that you can learn from the study, and it's already been done. In the 1960s, the scientists, they put some dogs in a cage. I think there were 5 dogs in a cage, and they locked the cage door. And then on the bottom of the cage, there were electric shocks. Occasionally, they would electrocute the dogs. They would give them a little electric shock, and the dogs would flinch and they would scream and they would be in a distress. They would continue doing that. Eventually, the dogs got tired of flinching. Like, it just became so normal. That's what they became accustomed to it. They stopped screaming. They would give an odd flinch here, they would give an odd flinch there, and then they just got on with their life. Some time passed, and then the scientists, they opened the door to the cage, and the dogs had the ability to get out. With the door open, they then they shocked the dogs again, and they didn't get out. They just flinched, and then they continued going about their way. And then they put in a new dog in that place. So now there were 6 dogs. This new dog had never been succumbed to this treatment. They had the door open. And then when they shocked the dogs, as they typically did, this new dog screamed and they melted out of that place very quickly. And then when the old dog, so that the new dog left, they then ran as well and they left. But they had the door open the whole time, but they didn't leave. Now, what you can learn from this is you can be in an environment where you're literally physically not in a great space. You're physically quite literally in captivity, and you can have the option to leave. But if you've been in a terrible situation for so long, you start to get comfortable in the dysfunction of the slavery. So much so that when it's time to leave, or when you have the option to leave, you don't even see, you don't even think about it as a possibility. You don't even leave. These dogs had the ability to leave and they didn't. How many times are we in toxic situations, toxic environments, and we've been beat down, broken down so often that when it's time to leave, or when you have the option to leave, you don't. And then is the time to realize that your mind is now enslaved. And again, whoever has your mind has your body. Back then, they used to, put you in physical slavery. And now we have mental slavery. The power is in the mental slavery. And people who know that, they know that. And they will try and control your mind, will try and manipulate. That's why you have narcissists who will try and tell you and degrade you and beat you down to a point where you start to believe that you're worthless. You start to believe that you're nobody. You start to believe those things. And when you get to a stage where you don't, where you feel hopeless and you don't even try anymore, you know that your mind has been enslaved. Your mind is literally in slavery. You have the ability to leave, but you don't have it in you anymore. Slavery of the mind is deadly. And here are 4 ways that you can recognize when someone is enslaved mentally. The first one is you don't even think critically anymore. You just accept things as they are. This is my reality. There is no hope. This is just how it is now. This is who I am. This is how it is. You don't think outside the box. Quite literally, you are in a box. The second thing is you are now dependent. It could be dependent on something or dependent on someone. And despite you may want to get out, you don't think you can. You don't believe that you can get out of it, so you don't even try. So just like the dogs, when the door opens, they're dependent. You are dependent on someone. You are dependent on something. And without that or without them, you don't believe that you can function. That is a sign of a slavery mindset. And the third thing is you have a lack of autonomy. You feel powerless. You feel like there's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you can say. There's nothing that it possibly can happen to change the situation. You just feel hopeless. You feel powerless. You feel like you're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything. You can never get out of this situation. And then lastly, you may have a fear of being rejected by society and by the people around you. So you stay in this place because maybe that's all you have, or maybe that's the situation that is there, and you don't want to let people down. You don't want to feel those feelings of rejection. You don't want to. You just an internal fear of being rejected. So it's better to stay in this situation than to actually seek help. And actually, I've just thought of 2 more, so I said 4. Okay, I'm going to make it 6. The fifth thing is you suppress your emotions, you suppress your feelings, so you don't even remember the last time you felt anymore. You're in autopilot. You are just going about the motions, going about the day. You literally feel nothing. It's like a block, a cold lump that's in your heart, that's in your mind, and you just don't feel anymore. You can't remember the last time you felt joy or happiness or peace or anything. It's just empty. You feel empty. And then the last thing is the inability to imagine an alternative reality. You can't see anything that is past the situation. You can't think or see anything that is outside of this prison, if you will. I want you to know that if you can tick off some of those 6s, all of those 6 things, one of those 6 things, you do not have to stay a captive or a slave in your mind. You can change your mind. You can change your life. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You're not a victim of your past. There are ways and there are things that we can do to change that mindset. And this is the reason that I'm doing this series on mindset mastery. And I'll be talking about things that can help you get started on your journey, because it is a journey of freedom, real freedom, not from captivity, freedom from bondage, freedom from feeling like a slave in your own body, feeling like a slave in your own mind. So I want you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, because I'll be sharing ways and tools that you could use to become free in your mind and start to feel emotions again, and start to feel free, and start to know that you are free. That situation happened, those things happened, but you don't have to live in a mental prison for the rest of your life. Stay tuned for more videos on this channel. Be sure to hit the notification bell and subscribe to the YouTube video as we delve more into the mindset and limiting beliefs. See you in my next video.